Right, I think that started recording. The thing's got the right colors and the counter's going up. Oh, wow. 10-second mark. Anyhow, yeah, I'm recording on my iPad this time just because new replacement, the last one got damaged. And the cause of that damage, fortunately, was the cause of the replacement. So, anyway, I'm seeing how that recording goes. It looks like it's pretty good, actually, quality-wise. Just looking over at my own face. Anyway, this is another pagan priest, almost a minute into the video, finally getting to the point. I'm going to, today, just got my script here, talk about sacrifice. I know, that's a kind of scary word to hear from a religious person, especially for some people from a pagan, but it's not really that scary of a topic. Like, sacrifice is, well, before I delve into anything else, the origin of the term is in the Latin sacrificium. Sacrificium? Yeah, sacrificium. So sacrificium comes from two words. Sacre, or saca, sacar, sacer, basically to determine something as being holy. Root of sacred. And facere, or facere, facere. Anyway, as far as I can tell, it's the root of to fashion, or seems connected to function. It's to do, to make, to, like, to act on something. So sacar, facere together would make sacrificium, which is to make or to set apart as sacred, to make removed from the mundane. And I get the etymology from Britannica. Link should be in the description. And the the meanings and origin, well, the origin from the site as well, but the meanings of the Latin words from a very, very, very surface level understanding of Latin. Like, terms like that I have looked into particularly, but my Latin's not good enough to hold a conversation or even ask where the bathroom is. Yeah. I just say lavatorium with a very confused look on my face. But yeah. So, in the pagan context, that is what sacrifice is. It's a setting apart. It's a making of something sacred. Now, in a lot of cases, that involves destruction, such as killing of an animal, or the reaping of grain, or the pulling of root vegetables for a sacrifice. Those can be a form of sacrifice. Now, it also involves things like pilgrimages, where you take a ritual trip, or well, actually, one thing which I will talk about a bit more in the video is this. This is my, you can see there, I've got my little, a particular iteration of a pentagram cut into the handle there. And that is my ritual knife. It is a religious item to me. This is now already the longest video I've gotten. I'm 2 points into my notes. Anyway, it is a sacrificed and sacrificial object to me. Because and I'll be using it as an example further in the video. Another kind of sacrifice would be like temple site. Sanctified ground is sacrificed ground. It is set apart as sacred. So, to that end, and pursuant to how broad that definition is, I divide it further into 4 kinds of sacrifices. Now, I've got those on my script here, and they are on the article on my blog on ritual sacrifice. And they are sacrifice by destruction, which a good example of it is incense through its destruction is burned, and kind of the incense's components, the cost of them, their preciousness, as well as the smell itself, are both sacrificed. Now, the components are sacrificed by destruction. The same is true of, like, meat burned in a fire as a portion given over to the gods, or kind of the life component of an animal sacrifice would technically be a form of sacrifice by destruction, but that gets into dubious territory for my theology when it comes to like the soul of the animal. That more gets down to how you approach animal souls and dominion. But the second form of sacrifice is abandonment. Abandonment sacrifices are given by leaving the thing and not taking it up again. Now, like, if you toss a coin in a wishing well, you are abandoning that coin. You will never use that coin again. You can't spend it. It feels wrong to take a coin from a wishing well. For most people, and that's because to most people that is a form of sacrifice by abandonment. It's a recognizable, like, this is gone. Now, traditionally in Irish paganism, that would be considered to be a sacrifice to Brigid, or Braid. And Braid she's pretty nice. She went with the flow when Christianity came, and her stories got assimilated as stories of a saint. Her flame, I think, does it still burn? I think some people still keep her flame alive in somewhere in the east of Ireland, south of Dublin, I think. And and just one of the things that was known was that she would take a kind view and reward anyone who made an offering to her. So people would just toss a coin in a well, toss a coin, and because they were a quick, easy way of keeping value, it was even like tossing rings or nails, as far as I'm aware. Mind you, nails take a fair bit of like skill to make good nails. So, but and you would say what your prayer was, what you wanted from it when you tossed it, and then hopefully Braid would hear what you were wanting, Brigid, and she would take a kind view, respect the sacrifice, good grief, my hair is a mess, and reward you with what favor she could give. So that's abandonment. Abandonment is like you take it and it is not for use anymore. You, as someone who is a person who respects the sacrifice, should never touch it or use it again. It is gone. It is now sacrosanct and should not be touched. Then there's dedication, which is not the same. Dedication, devotion, those are not the same as destruction and abandonment. Abandonment, the thing still exists, but should be out of reach and should never be used again. It can't be used for another purpose. Dedication is what you do to like a location or a specific tree that's made sacred, or a spring, or a well, or an object. For instance, this is dedicated. Oops. This is dedicated. That is my ritual knife. It is dedicated to the making of tools and the furthering of my skills. It's dedicated it is dedicated to use as a tool of mine. I don't lend it out, and I don't use it as a weapon because it is not a weapon. It is a dedicated tool. It's sacrificially dedicated as a tool. I'm repeating myself a fair bit. This is spine. This is my first long video, and I've got a kind of script, and it's my first time having a script, and my bloody camera work is shaky as all grits out because of the fact that I'm using an iPad balanced on my knee as a camera stand. I really need to start actually getting good quality anything set up. Anyway, so dedication is like that. It's like if you have if you had a bowl that you only use, or a chalice or cup of some sort that you only use to hold sacrificial wine, you only use that for that. As someone who is committed to that sacrifice, you only use it for that. It doesn't get used for anything else. Now, then there is devotion. Devotion is not like dedication, where the thing is itself set aside. Devotion is where the thing is, it's an act. It's not an object, it's an act. It's like an animal can be theoretically, depending on your theology, devoted to use as a sacrifice, or devoted to being like you can have a temple herd of cattle whose milk is only used for making cheese and consumption by the priesthood, and they are devoted to that temple and its deity or deities, and they should not be used for any other purpose. And if they are used for an animal sacrifice, then their soul can be their sacrifice itself can be devoted to a god. The act of killing an animal for that god, or for the whichever gods are around and willing to take up the bargain. Or like a craft, like an act that you do to make an object. Like a potter might devote potter's not a great idea because I don't know who would like what god in particular might work with that, but a cook who's hosting a party and feeding a large number of people might devote, obviously not in these times because there's a pandemic on, but might devote their cooking, the cooking itself, to Andagda, because hospitality, feeding a lot of people, wish for their pot not to empty, just as Andagda's cauldron can feed whoever sits down to eat from it. And that would be the act. The food itself wouldn't be sacrificed, though the food could be blessed by the sacrifice. You can also devote your life to a god, which is just an ongoing sacrifice. That's kind of what a baptism is in Christianity, from like a pagan perspective. It's a devotional sacrifice of the life of that person to the Abrahamic God. Sorry, just getting a bit of a dry throat. These videos are not good quality yet. I hope to change that. And apologies for anyone watching after having watched my better quality videos from the future. I might be overly optimistic there, but... Oh, I have a Twitter now. More on that later. Anyhow, so those are the 4 kinds of sacrifice. Destruction, abandonment, dedication, devotion. Destruction of a thing, abandonment of a thing, dedication of an object or place, devotion of an action or life. So my personal preferred methods would be, like, well, as I said, I've got my sacrifice knife. Then there's the abandonment of parts of my own food. If I'm outside, like if I'm camping or something, I'll throw some in the woods or the fire. If I'm worried about wild animals, I'll throw it in the fire. If I'm not concerned, I'll stick it in the woods. And pouring out the last drops of my drink, or the first drops if I'm going inside and I'm outside when I get the drink. Like if I've heated up some mulled wine or cider on the barbecue. I find charcoal just gives it a little extra niceness. Then there's pouring out libations, where I'll take a full cup or a bowl of wine or other liquid that I enjoy, like tea sometimes, and I will never water. I don't know why, but I don't like water for it. It seems too mundane and half-assed. I don't know if the gods would care. I haven't tried it to see if they are annoyed, but I don't know. I just wouldn't. I use milk sometimes. And pour that out in my shrine, which I have in my backyard. I consider myself a pagan priest specifically because I keep a shrine, and in theory, anyone can use that shrine as long as they come to me, its keeper, and to a degree its guardian, and they ask me for permission. They can use that shrine. It is a shrine for the public, as much or more than it's for myself, and if they want to worship a specific god there, they are welcome to, as long as they keep the customs of the shrine. As long as they don't destroy it, damage it, or put things out of place. Like, don't step in the sacrifice area. That just don't. And I pour my libations in there. Also, pouring out blood from meat that I've thawed is one thing that I do. I've gotten into some arguments online about that. Some people think it has to be fresh blood for it to be a blood sacrifice. I take the view that blood is blood. The sacrifice of the blood is a part for the whole, par pro toto. A sacrifice of the meal. It is the essence, the blood, it's the lifeblood of the food being poured out so that I can eat the entire meal as a sacrificed meal, but I'm not eating the sacrificed part. If that probably doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of the way it goes, I guess. Then there's also like leaving food. I'll leave the remains from making stock, or the fat and silver skin from processing a chunk of meat, or the what's it? Just the not so nice parts off of fruit that I've cut off, if I'm cutting them off, or cores of apples, that kind of thing. I'll leave that abandoned on a space behind my shrine, both to feed the local animal population as like an act of charity, or to allow them just, like, it's to show willing, kind of. It's very minor, little, tiny bits of sacrifice just to show, just to keep the conversation going, kind of. I'll get to that. Then there's burning of incense, a traditional one. I don't think I need to explain that one too much. Abandonment of jewelry and coins. I'll like stick coins in the ground inside the sacrificial space. I'll leave bits of cheap jewelry lying around decorating the shrine. Obviously not picking it back up because it's sacrificed by abandonment. Then I'll do devotional hikes or camping trips where the hike or camping trip is itself a kind of pilgrimage into the woods, into the wild. And so that's the sacrifice. The sacrifice is the effort and the time taken to do it, and the care with which I do it. I think I have a blog post going up soon talking about that. Probably this Tuesday or something. Tuesdays are usually when I post things on the blog. Then there's... yes, so exactly like with the knife thing, where I dedicated it, and I dedicate other tools or implements. I had a hammer when I was working out in Fort McMurray that was dedicated to Thor. I don't particularly discriminate with gods if they're willing to work with me, and he didn't tell me not to work with his name. I've done work with him storm conjuring before, and he seemed not opposed? Question mark? It never bounced back in my face, it never missed, and it always hit with a bit of extra strength than I could put behind it myself. So, I'm fairly confident that he didn't have a problem with it. There's my knife, which is dedicated to whichever gods are willing to help, and yeah, it's dedicated to the purpose of work. It's been used in butchering, cooking, been used to make tools, been used to make props, honestly. Like, I use it to make a practice knife when I'm practicing martial arts, because that is the other thing, is that my dedication of my knife to use as a tool makes it something that I cannot, by religious commandment, I cannot use it as a weapon. But I also have some martial arts training which makes me a weapon, I guess. Yeah, my arms. And that is kind of, if I'm going to be carrying something weapon-like that I'm religiously not allowed to use as a weapon, then I do have a degree of religious calling just because of some of the gods to which I feel myself called, who work with me, that they take a dim view of someone not being able and prepared to defend themselves and those they care about. I work a bit with Lou Lovala, Lou of the Long Arm, the many-skilled one of the kings of the Tua de Danann, and his whole big thing is know how to become skilled in everything. Be a fierce warrior when you have to be a cupbearer when you have to be. So I learn, to the best of my ability, how to fight. And I learn, to the best of my ability, how to talk my way out of ever getting into a fight. How to act in such a way that I can keep people around me out of fighting. It's, if you wish for peace, prepare for war. Be better prepared for war, and those who want war won't. So that's kind of how I view it. Anyway, sorry for that tangent. Back to the topic of sacrifice. So, oh yes, there's an important distinction to be made between general and specific sacrifice. A general sacrifice is a sacrifice to whichever gods will take it. It's a sacrifice that is open for any god or spirit in the area that's willing to take it and will do their utmost best to give back what you ask. Then there is specific sacrifice. Like, if I make something on August 1st that I feel is an excellent demonstration of my skill, and I don't have a particularly important use for it, I will typically abandon it in sacrifice to loot. I've done a little bit of carving and metalwork and stuff like that when I remember to, the years I remember to, because that's Lunasa. That is a festival set aside often honoring Lu. According to some of the myths, it was founded by Lu in honor of his wet nurse, after she died. Now, I should still be using my knee as a rest for this, but my leg was getting tired. A guy I used to go to university with, he's got a podcast, On Behalf of the Fool. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend it. It's Catholic, but he goes the having a video playing and more podcasty. I really see the appeal now. Yeah. Anyway, like, I don't know if I'm covering a microphone or what, but anyway, a specific sacrifice, yeah, it's to a specific god. It's often bigger or more special or more intense. Like, what's a good example? Oh, so if you wanted to, if you and your significant other who you're trying to conceive a child with are both pagan and open to them, a fertility god, you might sacrifice a sex act to them. Now, what that sacrifice would mean, I'm not sure. It might mean having sex in a place that has been marked as sacred for the purposes of the ritual. It might mean painting up your bodies, or like just devoting the entire act, I think. And yeah, so that would be a way to specifically ask for their help in getting you pregnant as a couple. Now, that I would personally recommend, because while it would probably, by my beliefs, increase the odds significantly, it could also have side effects, like metaphysical side effects. It could have side effects on the lines of causing unhealthy emotional attachment. It could have side effects on the line of drawing the eye of a deity who all of your relationship practices might not align with, in which case you might be seeing oddities. But it it would probably slightly increase the odds of a pregnancy. But again, that's like, it is a magical thing. You're calling on gods. You're calling on things that you can't really understand. You literally cannot really understand them. You can understand part of what they are. You can relate to them, kind of, if they're in a relatable mood. But you can't understand what they are or how they operate, other than, like, they impose their will upon being within the realm in which they take an interest, and it changes the likelihood of something. If something is inevitable, a god can't change that. If you're barren, it would take an extraordinarily large miracle, not just the kind of miracle or blessing that you get from tossing a coin in a well. It would take a hell of a something for God to intervene enough to cure something like barrenness. Now, to cause it, bit easier, because breaking something is a lot easier than fixing it. And if you break a reproductive organ inside of someone's body, that organ no longer works. Like, obviously, I'm not saying the person themselves is broken. They're not. Just one part of their physical abilities is. Like, if you have a broken leg, you as a person aren't broken. Your leg's broken. If you've gotten, and funny story, I almost did, a broken dick, then you are not broken. Just a part of your anatomy is. That was a truly horrifying story. Funny, in hindsight. Funny at the time, too, but horrifying. Yeah, probably won't ever bring it up again or tell it. But, anyway. So that's the difference between a specific or a general sacrifice. A specific sacrifice asks for something particular and offers something particular. A general one asks nothing, usually, other than a kind look, and gives very little. Just a cup of wine. Or prayer, even. Although, prayer is more like asking for something. So, a praise? Anyway. Yeah, so that brings me to my last main point, which is when you make a sacrifice, as I've been alluding to the entire video, you are paying for something. You are giving over something. You are devoting something. You are offering something over and setting it apart from what is normal to ideally get something that you want back. A general sacrifice, you are making a sacrifice like a weekly libation or something of the sort to receive in return the kindness, the respectful gaze, and the mercy of one or more or many gods. If you are just making it to form a positive relationship with the gods in your area, like the spirits in your area, that's what you're doing. If you, every year, if you're a farmer, go out and leave a loaf of bread at the end of the harvest or something in the middle of one of your fields, which was a practice. I can't remember where I heard of it attested, but it's a practice. Then what you're doing is you're leading a sacrifice of abandonment of food to build a better relationship with the group it's shaking, to build a better relationship with the gods that can help your field. And that's what it's for. You don't do sacrifice because you love a god. You can. I get along with most of the gods that I work with, but I wouldn't say I love them particularly. But you can love a god. Sort of. But you conduct a sacrifice to get something. from a god. You conduct a sacrifice to get positive regard, to get help, to get... If you've offended a god somehow and they're being a dick about it and they are just messing up your life in a big way, you might conduct a sacrifice to get them to back off. That's really rare, and you're actually like significantly more likely, as far as I can tell, to be cursed by a practicing, amateurish, inexperienced witch successfully than you are to be cursed by a god. I might make a video about my time as a witch before I realized that I was acting more like a priest, so I just stopped calling myself more witch than priest and realized I'm more priest than witch. That was a couple of years ago that I made that realization. Anyway, so yeah, sacrifice is a transaction. Don't give something for nothing. Don't give when you aren't getting. And getting something in an afterlife, getting something after you die, your life pays for that. Your life is what gets you that. Not a sacrifice, not an offering, not... Like, it's not even the sacrifice of your life gets you that. It's... If you lived a good life, you will get what you get. If you lived a bad life, you will get what you get. I don't even think that particularly weighs into it. I think that just leaves the world better or worse, and you don't really get anything from that, as far as I'm concerned. Though that's complicated. I might make a video on it later. But yeah, you don't... That's nothing in terms of what you get for a sacrifice. A sacrifice gets you something if it's a successful sacrifice. An unsuccessful sacrifice gets you nothing. If it's rejected, it will get you nothing. Anyway, this video has ended up more than well in excess of it's almost 13 times as long as any of my other videos so far. So I'll wrap things up. Basically just like respect a sacrifice if it's made. If you think that something's been sacrificed, don't mess with it. If you don't know what's going on, it's extremely disrespectful. Or do if you don't care. Like Christians used to destroy pagan altars and ritual spaces because they didn't care. And were committing genocide, but that's that. Then there's, yeah, just closing remarks. I've got a Twitter. It's the at is at another pagan, I think. There's an underscore in there. At another underscore pagan. Then there's my blog, of course, Another Pagan Priest, at Blogspot, I think. Blogger, at Blogger. Is it Blogger? Yeah. Anyway, Another Pagan Priest blog. The link will be in the bio, description. That's what they call it on this. Yeah. And yeah. So I'm going to probably have had the cards up by now. This is my first time making a long-ish video and actually remembering that I can add things at the end. Yeah, please do links, not link, like, or dislike, subscribe, and comment if you can. Yeah. Let me know what you think, what I should change, what I should keep doing, what I should do more of. I don't know how to do this bit. Anyway, this is Another Pagan Priest. Thank you for watching. Thank you for putting up with this. And if you made it all the way to the end, I salute you. Thank you.